Welcome to Talking New York Real Estate with Vince Rocco. Our show is all about the exciting world of real estate and in particular, how it relates to the luxury New York marketplace. But if you are not planning a real estate transaction in New York, we still have plenty of information you can use no matter where you are. Now, here's our show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Vince Rocco in New York, where the state of our industry can be separated by a river. So let's get right to what everyone is talking about. For decades, New York City has represented the opportunity, culture, convenience, and the energy of urban living. Yet just across the Hudson River, New Jersey has become an increasingly attractive alternative, offering more space, different lifestyle options, strong transportation networks, and for many buyers, a different value proposition. Separated by a river, but connected by millions of daily commuters, these markets are often viewed as one giant real estate ecosystem. But what drives demand in Manhattan isn't always what motivates buyers in New Jersey or other suburbs. Pricing strategies differ, taxes differ, inventory behaves differently. Even the way buyers evaluate value and quality of life can be dramatically different. As affordability is challenged, remote work, lifestyle profiles, and economic uncertainty continues to reshape housing decisions, more consumers are asking the question, should I stay or should I go to New Jersey? And for those in New Jersey, is moving back to the city the right move? And joining me today on set from Brown Harris Stevens are Allison McGuire and Peter Cosio, and they join me now to discuss. But first, let me welcome my listeners and my viewers from across the United States and all around the globe. This is Talking New York Real Estate, so let's go behind the headlines and inside the state of our industry.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So today we're talking about the suburbs, in particular, New Jersey. Now, if you live in Metro New York, as I do, we've got New Jersey, we've got Connecticut, we've got Westchester County, we have Long Island. And, for reasons, that we'll talk about today, people have a need to leave Manhattan proper, Brooklyn proper, New York City proper, and head to the burbs. Sometimes it's school-related for the children, sometimes it's job-related. Oftentimes they just want more space. And we're going to talk about all of that, all of the reasons why people might be thinking about, and I was going to call the show, and it sort of is, shall I stay or shall I go? Okay, shall I stay here in New York or shall I go somewhere else? And, some people, want to make it tragic that you're leaving New York City to go elsewhere. It actually is not. So we're going to get into all of that as we go through the hour today. Allison, let me start with you, though. But for listeners and viewers today who may not know your market, can you kind of give us a snapshot about what makes New Jersey unique? Out of all of our burbs, what makes New Jersey unique?
I believe New Jersey is unique because it's, especially my area, we are still close to New York, but far enough away that you feel like you're not, in the city, but not too far away that you feel like you're in the farmland. Our tagline for Montclair is where the suburb meets the city. It's the best of both worlds. And I feel people come there to experience suburban life, but can escape back to the city if they need to.
I like the way you describe it as the farmland. I have a very dear friend who runs a real estate brokerage in Hoboken, and he always says when he comes on the show and we're talking about Jersey, he always says it's another borough of New York City. Mm-hmm. Because as you just said, the proximity to get to Hoboken, Jersey City, or points further out, it's not that long. No. It doesn't take long to get there. And people live in New Jersey, in those areas, and work here in Manhattan. Right. Peter, the same question to you. Why do you feel that your territory in New Jersey is unique? What are some of the value points that you would tell clients when they're considering moving to New Jersey? And where would make, more sense for most of your clients?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I work primarily in Hoboken, and I often tell my clients that, we're looking for people that not necessarily want to live in Manhattan, but people that are looking to move out of Manhattan as an option or another option to Brooklyn, potentially areas where you're still geographically very close, where you can take a train or a ferry We have a lot of transportation options in Hoboken. You literally look east and you see Manhattan. So we're really more of a bedroom community. And like your friend said, another borough, a lot of people refer to it. Hoboken in particular has a very defined kind of area where you have the Palisades to the west, you have a cove to the north, and then you have a railroad line. And it makes it a very walkable community, similar to areas of Brooklyn. It also has larger spaces for the value that you're not getting in some areas. Our price per square foot is actually less than many points geographically farther away in New York. So I think that is very important to people if they're looking for to still be close enough where they can, be in Manhattan in about a half hour, door to door. It's very convenient, and yet, have a larger space at a better value.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember. I mean, I'm in this town since I'm in my 20s, living here full-time since I'm in my 30s, so a very long time. And I remember way back when, I consider myself a Manhattan kid because I've been here for so many years, but I remember way back when people wanted to leave Manhattan for a bit larger space, for more property, for quiet, for whatever, they'd head to Brooklyn because they found all of that out in Brooklyn until Brooklyn became so high-priced through the years, most especially the last 10, 15 years, that now they're looking at other areas like New Jersey or like Westchester County. I come from Westchester County, so I know the difference, and I feel and I see the difference between the suburbs and the city. But Allison, what are the biggest misconceptions do you think New Yorkers have about New Jersey when they may be considering it, or just in general? New Yorkers or New York proper, all they think about is New York, all they think about is wherever they live in the 5 boroughs. But what are some of the misconceptions that people have when they're thinking about New Jersey or maybe even considering a move to New Jersey?
I think the biggest misconception is that you're going to live in the Hicks and that you're not going to have culture and that you're going to have to drive everywhere. And it's not true. It's not true at all. Like I said, our tagline for our area is where the city meets the suburb, and it's the best of both worlds. You have green space right outside your door. You can open up and have a yard, but you can get on the train and be in the city in half hour or 45 minutes. So I think they have to get over the fact that they are moving to the suburbs, and that the suburbs is not your, grandparents' suburbs. It's a nice combination of urban suburban life. And I think that's what people are most surprised when they move out of the city and to the suburbs, that it's a combination of both, that you're not stuck out in nowhere and have to get in a car and drive everywhere. There's culture. You can walk to the parks. You can walk to the store. You can walk to schools. So, cars become less of an issue. And
let's talk about the flip side of that. So what misconceptions do people who reside in New Jersey have about Manhattan or any of the New York City boroughs? They look at Manhattan like, whoa, big, bad, whatever, or it's okay.
No, I just think they think of it as an extension of where they live. They moved to our area because we are the proximity to the city. So like I said, they can have the best of both worlds. They can work and play in the city, but then come home and have a nice yard and, public schools that they can send their children to and not have to pay for private school. So there's really no negativity. In fact, it's a positive. People move to our areas because of the proximity of the city.
Peter, from your perspective, when clients are deciding to leave Manhattan and move to New Jersey, what lifestyle factors might they be looking for that they can't necessarily get in Manhattan? And it's not only just driven by price sometimes, but they're looking for like other lifestyle things that they can do because it exists in New Jersey or the other suburbs that you really can't get here in Manhattan.
There is a level of convenience about living in New Jersey if you're the accessibility to the airport, for one. I think that
that's correct. Yeah.
Also, I think that there's this misconception that New Jersey is all about the entrance to the Sopranos episode, and it's really a beautiful state. It's I was kind of shocked. I mean, I lived in Manhattan for, a decade, and I grew up in Chicago, but New Jersey has so many beautiful areas to discover. There's, hiking and lakes, and there's so many areas where you can easily jump in a car, which you don't need every day, as Allison pointed out. So a lot of my clients only use their car over the weekend. But when they do use it, they have the accessibility to go down to the shore. They can go.
Well,
to
help me
areas
understand
where
that, because when people like me who live in Manhattan or anywhere in New York City, we don't really. I got rid of my car 3 years ago because I was paying garaging and it was ridiculous. No need, because we can walk anywhere. We can jump in a taxi. We can jump in an Uber. Whatever we need to do. The railroad if I'm going up to Westchester to visit my family. But when we think of, including myself, living in New Jersey or any suburb, I would think that we would need more of a car than not, right? So explain how we don't necessarily need a car, as you just said, every day if you live there.
There are definitely different, just like New York, there's just different areas of New Jersey. And I think Montclair and Hoboken are kind of unique, where Montclair has a really vibrant downtown area.
Yeah,
and Hoboken,
beautiful, actually.
Hoboken is extremely walkable.
Mm-hmm.
And so you definitely do not, during the week, need a car in Hoboken. You can walk to your yoga class, your kids' daycare, your school. But the convenience of having a car, whether that's parked in a garage, because Hoboken, similar to many parts of Brooklyn, has a lot of historic brownstones and townhomes.
Beautiful.
So you don't always have a parking spot, unlike Montclair, where you usually do, and some other parts of the New Jersey suburbs. So if you have a car parked in a garage, you can use it in the weekend, and it makes it very convenient, because the price to keep the car is not as exorbitant as in Manhattan, and you can have that luxury of going to the Poconos or the Catskills on the weekend and have your car available to you, but yet still be able to be in a walkable community. And I think that's very attractive to people.
Yeah, I mean, again, when I go to the suburbs to visit my family, we're always in a car, because that's not a walkable town where my family is. But, I don't miss having a car. I'm a New Yorker for many, many years, and I call myself a foot soldier. So if I can find a place like Hoboken, Jersey City, where you are, that's wonderful. And so I'm wondering, though, as far as, post-COVID, right, remote and hybrid work, has that changed why people are looking more at the suburbs, particularly New Jersey, than maybe ever before, when they had to be in an office every day, 9 to 5, 5 days a week? Now it's kind of optional. Even though some companies have, mandated that people come back to work, it's still maybe 3 or 4 days a week, not every day. And there are people who work remotely every day. Do you feel like people have made the decision to leave the city and go to New Jersey because now they can really be comfortable and not have to worry about commuting every day, working from home?
Oh, I think most definitely, yes. We've always been a very, the place that people move from the city to when they leave the city and want to move to New Jersey. Montclair's always been that town, but even more so post-COVID, because now they can be close to the city, yet have space at home. They don't have to go into the city every day. But now, what they're looking for in a home has also changed, because now they need that dedicated workspace, where beforehand they didn't need that dedicated workspace. So now we're looking for, 3 bedrooms and an office, or 4 bedrooms that one can be used as an office. So, absolutely, post-COVID, not having to go into the city makes the move to Montclair even more, and the surrounding areas even more attractive, because they can work at home but be close enough to the city if they have to go in. So we've seen a big increase in people moving from the city to our area.
I would agree. But Peter, so just to follow up on that a little bit, beside the work from home buyer or person, who would prefer to live in Jersey for more space, are there any other profile of people that are seeking, a remote or a suburban lifestyle if they decide to move from New York City or from anywhere? Chicago, any other big city, Boston?
Yeah, so COVID was a very interesting, as I'm sure we're all aware, test of real estate, I think. And I liken it really to like a wave hitting a wall, because I think that there was a lot of people that I know in particular who went a little too far out and decided that, so one thing that I really, appreciate about New York City is that the inventory and the level of the inventory, the housing inventory, is very high. And so there are a lot of people that like left either New York City and came out, and maybe they went, a little farther than they thought they would. And they look around and there's not a Starbucks, 2 blocks away. And the housing inventory doesn't really look like it looked when you were living in Manhattan. That caused a little bit of consternation for people. And I think that a lot of those people have actually moved even closer to the city again. I know a few people who moved out and said, wait a second, I can't be here anymore. And then they've moved back closer to the city, maybe in areas closer to like Montclair or Hoboken, where they don't have to necessarily be in the city and yet have enough space, like Allison was saying, so to have an office space. But also the level of the inventory in Hoboken has increased dramatically over the 24 years that I've been in real estate, where people now, as opposed to when I started, people now as an alternative to going to Brooklyn, they can go to Hoboken. They can find a nicer, more renovated, more modern, more designed space that they can live in, also with an office potentially so they can work at home but yet commute. This is very desirable to be able to like have an office space. Like Allison was saying, we have a lot of clients that are looking for that extra room where they can have that. But I think that those other elements have changed dramatically over the last 20 years, and even through COVID, where people are finding the inventory that they are looking for, as opposed to moving to Brooklyn, they can move to Hoboken or Montclair.
We're going to talk about the types of inventory people are looking at or for in the suburbs. We're going to take a quick break. This is Talking New York Real Estate on the More Network here in New York City. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
And we are back. So let's talk a little bit about what people are looking for when they're leaving the city and moving to the suburbs. I mean, as you guys mentioned before the break, COVID or post-COVID has changed a lot, okay? People are looking for that extra den. People are looking for, that second or third bedroom with a little office space. I was showing clients of mine yesterday, and they're looking for like a little nick or an alcove where they can put their desk. They don't work home every day, but they do a couple of days a week, both husband and wife. So a spot in the apartment where they can share, whereas before, no one really thought about that because you went to the office every day. I mean, we in real estate have always had the flexibility of working home if we're not out showing, or if we needed to do some paperwork in peace and quiet, we just work at our desk at home, whatever. But most corporate people didn't always have that. Buyers often compare square footage and monthly cost here in New York City, okay? And as we've talked about on this show, on and on and on for the past couple of months, the biggest dilemma here in New York City these days is the carrying cost, okay? Your monthly maintenance or common charge if it's a condo, your real estate taxes, is there an assessment, on and on and on. The monthly carrying costs have escalated to the point where people are saying, hey, wait a minute. Even if I agree with the purchase price, I can't deal with this monthly cost every month escalating like crazy. For example, we talked about a couple of weeks ago how, maintenance prices on average have increased by double digits the last 2 years, January of 25 and January of 26. That's 10% or more. That's a big increase in maintenance. So my question is, based on all of that, when folks come to New Jersey to look at more space, larger, houses rather, are they concerned about monthly carrying costs like real estate taxes? You certainly don't have maintenance when you're buying a house, right? So do those costs make a difference to them, or are they so relieved that they can get rid of that and just pay a mortgage?
Well, I think they consider the taxes, absolutely, because it is it part of your monthly cost? So they take the price of the house plus the taxes. And Montclair and our area are known for their higher taxes.
Yeah.
And so, they definitely consider it. But it's not, they don't consider, there's not an ongoing, they know it's kind of a set cost and they take it into consideration. They often ask, what are the monthly, can you tell me what the monthly, gas and electric's going to be? Oh, how much do I need to get a landscaper? Because now I have all this property, and what does a landscaper cost? And I answer, well, I don't have a landscaper. I have 5 kids, so they
that helps.
They,
that helps. Like my parents had 4 kids.
Right.
No
so,
landscaper.
Yeah.
Hello.
So there's so there's other costs. You have landscaping. Am I going to need a new need a new roof in 5 years? How often do I have to paint the house? Do I have to, pave my driveway? So there are other ongoing costs over the course of the lifetime of the house that you're going to have to take into consideration. So those are about, I get those questions all the time.
We talk about value here in Manhattan all the time. And I'm one of these agents who, I tell buyers, especially buyers all the time, when you buy something, we have to think about value. You need to buy value going in, but you also have to understand that going out at some point, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, that value has to be there where you want to make some money and not lose any money. So the value proposition conversation I have with buyers all the time. How do you do that in New Jersey when, they're coming from higher cost in Manhattan or wherever they're coming from, even though you have taxes and that may be higher, but I would think the value proposition would be easier to sell in New Jersey, or is it not?
Well, there is a stigma that New Yorkers have about New Jersey that is really the biggest hurdle. Not the value; it's that people are just like some New Yorkers turn their nose up about being in Jersey. They won't go to Jersey.
Yeah.
They just won't go. I mean, they're just
Which I never really understood, and I'm not just saying that because you guys are here. I mean, I
lived
grew
in the
up
city.
going to New Jersey.
I lived in the city for a long time, and people, I said, when I told people, there's a place called Maxwell's in Hoboken. It's famous for having these great bands. And I used
Is it
to
right on the water?
It's close. It's not far. Yeah, it's very well known. I mean,
I think I've been.
Nirvana has played there. A lot of really cool bands. When I was living in Manhattan, I would be like, "Oh, let's go to Maxwell's," and people are like, "Oh, but you have to go to Jersey,"
Yeah.
And it's the interesting thing that I find over time is that you'll get foreigners, you'll get people from Germany or Europe, and they'll come in and they'll say, "Well, why aren't you living in New Jersey when the geography tells you that the value is there, right? So you can get something at a lower cost, your maintenance fee is lower, and your proximity to New York City is better." And I'm like, well, the reason is that New Yorkers don't want to come to New Jersey. So there's a segment of population that don't want to go to Jersey, and it makes no financial sense whatsoever.
Right.
So that's not really they see the numbers. The numbers are easy. That's why we have a lot of finance people, I think, in Hoboken, because we have the PATH train that gets to Wall Street. And for them, it just makes complete sense to live in Hoboken as opposed to, out in parts of Brooklyn that are so much farther away. And I think that is the biggest hurdle, the hurdle that we don't have with people from either out of other parts of the country or other parts of the world that come into Hoboken. That's what I found. And so, I love New York, but, some New Yorkers are just kind of hesitant to go to New Jersey, and it's a shame.
I mean, I think again, I keep saying I'm from Westchester County, and my family is still up there. I mean, we're talking 40 minutes up the road. I mean, it's not that far away, right? Closer to come to New Jersey. But I find that most I guess traditional or typical New York City people think the same way about Connecticut, think the same way about Long Island, think the same way about Westchester, and think the same thing about New Jersey. Maybe there's a little more of a stigma in New Jersey. Why, I don't know. Like me, growing up, going to the Jersey Shore almost every weekend, or spending a week or two at a time with my family growing up on the Jersey Shore. We could have gone to Long Island, right? But we didn't. We went the other way. I love it. And I think people, when they realize or get past that, whatever is in their mind, nothing wrong with it.
100%.
So if I had $1 million to spend, I mean, quite frankly, here in New York City, $1 million is going to maybe buy you a one bedroom. In some cases, maybe a little less, which is kind of sad on its face, but it is what it is. What does that buy you in New Jersey? You know, our biggest argument is, you know, you want to spend $1 million, and I just referred somebody to New Jersey. If you want to spend $1 million, you buy a mansion in New Jersey or up in Westchester. Is that true?
No.
Okay. There we go.
No.
Not true.
No. In the areas of New Jersey that are in close proximity to the city, the answer is no.
Right.
The further south you go or the further west you go out in New Jersey, yes, definitely.
Okay.
But proximity to the city, $1 million unfortunately does not get you a lot anymore. And, you know, and
What does it get you?
well, it will get you a maybe a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house that needs renovations.
Okay.
But you're close to the city. You don't have to pay for private schools. But $1 million does not get you a lot in the areas that are close proximity to the city.
Then what would you say the average price would be? Because I've lost track about what our average price here in Manhattan is anymore. I mean, when we talk about rentals, for example, you know, the average price of a rental is almost $5,000 a month for a 1-bedroom. On the sales side, probably about 1.2, 1.3, maybe pushing 1.4 average, you know, for, you know, smaller size apartments. What would you say the average size, average price would be in New Jersey for a typical home, 2, 3 bedrooms, maybe a little larger, anywhere in New Jersey?
I mean, I don't have that stat because we primarily, Alice and I work in very different markets. So in Hoboken, there's a lot more inventory. We have more inventory that similar to what you're going to probably see in Brooklyn.
We have a lack of inventory problem here in Manhattan. It's not the same for you guys, is it?
Oh, no, we have a lack of inventory. What I'm saying is the diversity of inventory makes the
price.
makes the price calculation of what you can get for $1 million different. Mm-hmm. So, you know, in Hoboken, Allison said you could get a 3-bedroom house. In Hoboken, you can get a 2-bedroom condo, and not a great one, more of like a walk-up. You know, we have a lot of walk-up condos in Hoboken. It's kind of a thing in Hoboken, actually, where you can get very large apartments that are walk-ups, so the price per square foot is lower, but there's a bunch of builders that made them in the 80s, and now they're still trading. And so there's, you know, I don't know off the top of my head what the average, you know, I know on the high end, like what's interesting too is that if you have a view of Manhattan, actually the price goes up.
I was going to ask you about that.
So if you can look at Manhattan, the closer you are to Manhattan, and in Hoboken, it's like street per street, by street, I should say, yes. And so we have what we call the botanical streets, Bloomfield, Garden, Park, Willow. And those are more expensive than the dead presidents, which is Clinton,
Clinton's
Jefferson.
Not dead yet. Clinton's not dead.
He's not dead yet, but I get your point.
The first Clinton, right? I think there's been 2. But anyway,
well, you know, look, we have the. That's so funny. We have the same issue here, but. And not to press the argument about the value proposition. Right. So if somebody says, you know, I'm kind of priced out of Manhattan, I can go and spend in Hoboken, which is beautiful, $1 million and get a beautiful, you know, 2-bedroom, blah, blah, whatever. How do you value that to them? Because sure, the cost may be a little lower there, but it's still $1 million, right? Right. How do you make that value proposition to that buyer who says, I have to leave Manhattan because I can't afford it anymore, or Brooklyn or Queens, wherever, and I'm going to spend $1 million in Hoboken? How do you what is that value proposition?
Well, the value proposition, I think, comes primarily from where you are working in Manhattan.
Well, there.
Because you can actually work in the West Village and be in downtown Hoboken and be closer to your workplace than if you lived on the Upper East Side.
And not a wild commute like if you lived on the Upper East Side or West Side.
Right. So actually that value proposition is important to people because it cuts down their travel time and they get to spend more quality time with their family, and they have a bigger space than they can afford in Manhattan or Brooklyn. The price per square foot, I often, when I'm talking to buyers, bring up, I know I get weekly or monthly estimates on the price per square foot in Brooklyn so I could show it to people.
Sure.
Because
Right.
it's that value proposition, and the fact if they're working in the proximity that's closer to them to commute is very attractive to people.
Allison, how would you describe the current state of the market in New Jersey right now, in your territory, in all of the closer to Manhattan territory? And by the way, from my apartment, I live on West End Avenue on the Upper West Side. I look at the Hudson River and I look at New Jersey. And I love New Jersey at night because the light, you talk about the opposite view of Manhattan. I look at all the beautiful lights in New Jersey every night and I fall asleep to looking at that thinking, oh, that's beautiful. So if I were on the other side looking this way, it would be the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. I love my view. But anyway, so, what is the current state of the market today in, the areas that you guys live and work in? And what are the greatest opportunities for buyers or sellers?
Right. I say the word I use to describe it is dynamic. And it's ever-changing and exciting. And you have to be educated and you have to be thoughtful. Mm-hmm. And I just think that if you're willing to explore different options, you may not be able to afford Montclair, but if you go 5 minutes over to the next town, Verona, Bloomfield, the Caldwells, which is adjacent to, the train town of Montclair, there's so many opportunities. So you as a consumer buying a house has to be educated, mm-hmm. and you have to have an agent that can let you know what's out there.
Absolutely.
And if you can't find something right where you're looking, there's so many different alternatives. So I think from that perspective of a buyer, it's dynamic. And from a seller, our area has always been a seller's market and always will be a seller's market. So if you're ready to move, the market has never been better than it is now. And there's so many people that want to move to the area that, you just have to get out there and put your house on the market. And but it's definitely dynamic and very exciting, and it's never a dull moment.
Peter, following up on that, we talked a little bit about inventory or lack of. In your territories, as well as here in Manhattan, we struggle greatly with limited inventory. But are bidding wars, based on what Allison just said, are bidding wars on multiple offers still happening? Because if it's really a seller's market and there's not a lot on the market, are bidding wars happening? We don't have too many of them here in Manhattan
Constantly.
Or in New York City, but are they happening in your territories?
I think at certain price points, absolutely. So I think under $2 million in Hoboken, you're almost assuredly going to be in a bidding war.
Yeah.
Anything under $2 million in Hoboken.
That makes sense.
When you're $4 million and up, not as much. Things are still moving, but you're not getting multiple offers. I think it's gotten a little softer recently. Even in the $4 million range, $4 to $6 million is the top of our market in Hoboken, really. You don't
That's
really...
pretty high.
Yeah, but you don't really find...
Now, what does that get you, by the way? Not to divert, but what does that get you?
Most...
Townhouse?
You get a townhouse or you get a very large condo with a view.
Gotcha.
And so a townhouse, more likely, because there's more townhomes that are available. Some of the condos at that price point there's very few of them that are that large where you would get to those price points. But they, it's very sought after to have a renovated townhome because turnkey is very important. People have found that the cost of construction has increased.
Yeah.
And I think you touched on that. It's all related to, maintenance costs go up because labor costs have gone up, and the cost to maintain and to
Cost
fix
of
things,
everything, energy,
and contractors.
correct.
So, people see, and also in New Jersey, something that we haven't touched on, but recently the mansion tax has also been passed on to the seller. And so it's a graduated tax where it used to be for the buyer at $1 million.
Here we only have it on the buy side, and it's graduated. Now you're saying it's graduated and on the sell side?
On the sell side.
Yeah, for the last year.
Where does that make sense?
That's a question we've been
I'm
asking.
selling. I'm getting the hell out of here.
Right.
Why do I have to pay a mansion tax?
And when the former governor was asked why he has changed it from the buyer to the seller. And the response was, it makes it more affordable for the buyer now to buy a house without the mansion tax. And, the millionaire's tax, which is funny, it's $1 million or over. And $1 million really doesn't get you a mansion.
Well, that's why they've upped it here in New York. $1 million got you nothing, really.
Right.
So now it's graduated depending on, and some of those numbers are
Vince,
incredible.
but real quick, I just wanted to say,
Sure.
In the New York adjacent New Jersey market, there are bidding wars practically for, I would say, 90% of all the houses. A house comes available on a Thursday. By that following Tuesday or Wednesday, there's 3 to 5 offers on every house. Yeah. And the only houses that aren't getting multiple bids because it's not priced right. So, every week there's multiple bids on every.
I'm hearing the same thing in Westchester County, again, where my family is. It's like something goes on the market, it's gone in days.
Yeah.
Multiple offers in a lot of cases. And you're right. Same thing here in New York. If it's not priced right, it's not going to sell.
There's only one reason a house doesn't sell, because the buyer does not see the value at that price.
When I first hired on to this company 24 years ago, my first manager said to me, it always comes down to pricing. And I had no idea what he was talking about because I just brand new in the business. And through these years, he was so right. If something is not priced right, it's not going to sell. Sellers, it's just not going to sell. What trends are you watching out there today that could influence the market over, say, the next year or two, based on what you know today, based on what you see today in your territory? Are you noticing any particular trends that are changing the dynamic of the marketplace or that may change in the next year or two?
In Hoboken, we're seeing, and Brown Harris Stevens has a large project in Hoboken right now, we're seeing higher amenity buildings similar to what you would find in...
Interesting.
We
have a development out there, don't we?
We do. Yeah. South End Lofts, beautiful building, designed by John Nastasi, who's a local high-end architect, great architect.
Yeah, I heard it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And it's very, very popular because it's created its own community in the building. It's a very large complex, and you have a lot of amenities there. And in the ground floor retail, you have shopping, a nursery, school, a gym, everything that is basic, everything that someone would need so that they can kind of like live in that community. I think that has become a trend that we didn't normally see. Traditionally, like I mentioned earlier, some of the condominiums in Hoboken were just walk-ups or, smaller kind of boutique-y buildings. And so now we're seeing kind of larger, more amenity style buildings. Also in Jersey City, you're seeing that as well. A lot of amenities in a lot of buildings. I think that's been the trend lately. But I think that, to touch on what you're discussing earlier and what Allison was saying, and the rate lock that is still kind of prevalent has really created low inventory and has kept prices very high. It's also, I think, continued to be very desirable to live in our area, whether that's Brooklyn or New Jersey, and have the tri-state area commutable to New York City is still very attractive to people. And the lower the inventory, people don't want to move because they have a low rate, and plus they like living here, which is good. And I think we mentioned this before the show.
We did.
Is that if you're being forced to move now, right? So now you're kind of seeing the kind of reaction to maybe a growing family or a job change, something like that. I think that's forcing people, but it's still a very tight market.
All right, we got to take another quick break. Word from our sponsors, but we aren't going anywhere. One more block to go. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
This podcast is supported by the More Network, powered by Brown Harris Stevens. Real estate touches every aspect of our lives, from design and architecture to investing and the economy. Now there's a way to get all your real estate information in one place, the More Network. With more than 20 podcast and webcast series, the Mastery of Real Estate Network is powered by Brown Harris Stevens, one of the country's most distinguished brokerages. Discover advice from notable entrepreneurs, compelling topics, and access to top global real estate experts. Subscribe to their YouTube and Apple podcast channels by visiting GetMoreNetwork.com.
And we are back. So, Allison, let me ask you a question. If a longtime Manhattan resident called you and said tomorrow, convince me why I should stay or I should go, how would you answer that? Should I stay in New York or should I come to New Jersey? What would be your typical answer for that question?
I would first ask them why they're thinking of moving and what's important to them in their lifestyle. And then if they're saying, well, we want more space, we want to, not pay for private schools, we want to grow our family, I would say, now's the time to move, if those are why you're moving, because we know what we know now about the market. And it's just going to keep getting better and better. More and more people are moving to New Jersey. Now's the time to do it. Start your journey now, because the market's just going to get tighter and more expensive. So I find out what's behind their move, and if it's for, financial reasons, or if it's for family expansion reasons, it's for work reasons. It all comes down to, if you have to move, I would do it now, because we know what we know now, and it's just going to get tighter and more expensive as the years go by.
According to our fair housing rules, we're not allowed to talk about schools when we're talking to clients, but here we're exempt. So calm down, everyone. Is schooling a real issue when people say, I'm considering coming to the burbs because better schools, my kids will have a better time, et cetera? Is that really one of the major things that people ask about, or is it just everything in general?
I would say it's one of the factors.
Because as you mentioned, not to interrupt you, private schools here in New York are crazy.
Right.
The cost of private school here can be $100,000 a
Right.
year, which I will never, ever understand, but it is what it is. So school's a big issue?
It's one of the factors that they consider, but it's not the factor.
Right. Okay.
But in a town like Montclair or Glen Ridge or Verona, where a large percentage of your real estate tax are going to fund the school budget,
Yeah.
many people still opt to send their kids to private school. So they look at it as...
It's the same here in New York.
Right.
It just doesn't get mad.
But it's the big picture, the opportunity to have that option
Yeah.
to send your kids to public school.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the many factors they consider, but not the main factor.
Peter, anything to add to that? When you're talking to people?
Yeah, I think it relates to the taxes. People complain about the taxes, and then they realize that the schools, they can actually offset the taxes because the taxes are paying for the school. And so I think it's a third or something of your tax base, correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, something like that, goes towards the public school system. So as Allison said, there are still people that pay for private school even though they have the option to go to the public school, but the community itself and the real estate value is sometimes anchored to that public school that is actually highly rated, for
Right.
example.
Right.
So if you have a very high rating in the public school, rankings, it makes your suburb more attractive, and therefore, you get more. Everything rises with the public schools. I feel sometimes in the suburbs, and so that's important for people. Although, as Allison said, we still find people paying for private schools, even when they're in a good school district.
It's remarkable, but I always have the conversation with buyers or sellers here in Manhattan who say, aside from the schools, my kids want more space. They want to be able to grow and be outside with friends and stuff. Should I really raise my family here in Manhattan, or should I take them to the suburbs? And I always respond with, hey, listen, I hate to see you go, but it's really not my decision. That really is yours. And based on what you guys have just said, you got good schools out in Jersey or whatever other burb they're looking at. So you've got to take it to what your family needs, what's more important, and what's good for everyone, not just for you from a pocketbook standpoint, but what is good for everybody. Conversely, though, when people in New Jersey are saying to you, hey guys, I think I'm ready to sell my home and move to Manhattan. Now, aside from saying, hey, I got a listing, that's a great thing, what do you say to them about moving to Manhattan? Is it kind of like, do you really want to do that? Have you been there before?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, great. You've done your New Jersey, you've done your time in the suburbs. Now you get to go back in and enjoy the city.
Right.
And you'll never get, it's a great seller's market. You'll never get more for your house than you will now.
Right.
No matter if you're in Hoboken or Glen Ridge or Montclair, Verona. So take the money and run and go. Enjoy your life. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
I would agree. I probably would say the same thing. And on my side of the fence here in Manhattan, I get a lot of people, empty nesters, who raised their family, lived in Manhattan, moved away to a burb, then want to come back. And they say to me, in fact, I just sold a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment to someone from New Jersey. Came as a referral to me from another great pair of buyers. And unfortunately, she lost her husband about 1.5 years ago, and her kids are, late teens. And she said, we just need a change. Mm-hmm. And they're coming from a beautiful house, and it's sold, by the way, in one day, one open house on Sunday. And we looked for a beautiful, and again, inventory is tight here. We were out one day on a Sunday, and we found the most gorgeous 3-bedroom in my neighborhood on the Upper West Side. And she's delighted. And, her whole thinking is, now her kids are out of school already, but, they're still at that age of college and whatever else. And they all seem to be ready to do it, ready for a change. She and her husband lived here first, then went out to the burbs to raise their kids. Now, unfortunately, he left early, this world. And she's like, I just need a change. And she seems to be really happy about that. So I often wonder, when empty nesters come back into the city, it's kind of like they've had the best of both worlds, right? They've lived here. They've gone out to the burbs, raised their kid. I was raised in the suburbs. I loved every minute of it. And when I go up and visit on weekends, I still love it. But I'm a city person. So whether I would do it, move permanently, I don't know. But there's something for everybody. And I always say to people, it really has to be up to what you want it to be for you, for your family or loved ones, whomever is going to be involved. Because as you guys have been saying, throughout the show, it's a quick commute to New Jersey. And when people really understand how fast it is to get sometimes to New Jersey than it is to one of our boroughs or Long Island or even Westchester, it's unbelievable.
I'd like to add to that a little bit, because in Hoboken in particular, there's a phenomenon that's happening where people may have lived in the city, moved to Hoboken, bought a townhouse, and their kids went to high school in the city, and they actually moved back to the city from Hoboken.
Wow.
So it's like their second round into Manhattan because their children are going to. So there's a lot of people in Hoboken.
Now, that's kind of interesting that they're living in Jersey, but they'd send their kids to high school in Manhattan. Got to be a private school.
Happens all the time.
Really?
All the time, yeah. They actually walk. If you're in Hoboken at 7 o'clock in the morning, you can see a trail of children going down to the PATH train.
To go to school in Manhattan?
Yeah, there's the Little Red School
Little Red Schoolhouse.
And there's also
because
Grace.
it's cheaper to live in Hoboken or less expensive to live in Hoboken?
Because they want to send their kids to the best private schools. They even go to school in Brooklyn from Hoboken. There's many people that go to what is the school?
I'd die if I had to put my kid on a ferry to go to school in Brooklyn. Like, no, please make sure you come home.
It happens a lot. And we also get empty nesters that come from the suburbs to go to Hoboken. And so I've sold.
That's true, Peter. Yeah.
I've sold townhouse. So I've sold townhouse to empty nesters where the people that own the townhouse were moving to Manhattan, had lived there before, and the empty nesters were coming from Princeton, going to Hoboken because they wanted to be closer to the city.
Well, that I can kind of get, right? I mean, it's like, up in Westchester, I lived a little further north in Westchester, and people had wanted to come to the city, but not New York City proper.
Right.
They'll go to
Still
White Plains.
Too close, yeah.
Right.
They go to White Plains, which is a very big city.
Yeah.
Close enough, but still
Baby
get
steps.
that feeling of a big city vibe, which I get. Again, I'm living in New York for many years. But when you talk to them about, their goals, do they really have, because sometimes when I'm talking to an empty nester who's looking to come back, I really kind of not play with their mind, but I really kind of interview them and say, is this the right thing for you to do? You've lived comfortably. You've got a beautiful home. You send your kid to school. I get the fact that the kids are out again, but is this really what you want to do? And I almost get a resounding, Vince, absolutely yes.
And sometimes it's just a stopover when they move from the suburbs back to the city. They don't know where they want to go yet.
Right.
And they know the city. It's still close enough to what used to be home in New Jersey. So it's kind of a stopover before they decide their permanent next move. So I find that a lot.
Let's talk a little bit about, we talked about all of the benefits and all the great stuff that does exist in New Jersey for people who don't really believe that. But what are some of the real, good attributes of living in either Hoboken or a little further out or anywhere, Jersey City, that people don't really realize because they're so Manhattan focused or Brooklyn focused? But what attributes, can they replicate in New Jersey?
I always, it comes down to the walkability.
Yeah, that's definitely a plus.
You have little town centers that you can find your favorite bagel store, your movie theater, that you can just, get out, walk out your front door and, walk a couple blocks. So walkability is a big thing. Sense of a community where you get to know lifelong friends and, develop, a way of life. And I just think it's the green space. They'd be able to, go out and ride your bike at a moment's notice. So I think that's what it really comes down to.
Some of our greatest, entertainers or whatever have come from New Jersey, to name a few, right? Springsteen. I mean, who the hell doesn't like Springsteen, right?
Sinatra.
Well, yeah,
Hoboken.
Sinatra. I mean, Bon Jovi. I mean, I can go on and on and on. But I mean, these people choose to live where they live for reasons, right? Because it is beautiful. But, a lot of Manhattanites, more than the other boroughs, I think, are so stuck on being Manhattanites that I remember way back when Brooklyn was really becoming very popular again, or for the first time, people were hesitating like, oh, yeah, but it's not Manhattan. But then they realized, well, wait a minute. Quality of your life is just as good, maybe better. Pricing then was cheaper. Schools were just as good. And maybe I can get some green space as well.
Right.
So that kind of took a while to catch on. So those crusty old Manhattanites were like, okay, I can see us doing that. And now try to get them back to Manhattan? No. So, I get that, for people considering a move back to the city, a lot of people tell me they feel like they've missed something. But like this client I just recently sold something to, she said, and it's not by no way am I saying that I didn't like New Jersey. She said, I love it and would recommend it to anybody. And to me, a recommendation like that goes a long way. Right. Well, let me ask you this. So do you see more people wanting to come back here or do you see more people coming to your side of the fence?
I think,
just in average in general in a day, a week or whatever.
I think, our baristas don't have as much facial hair, which is, I think, very important, So, I definitely see, listen, our market is really based on the fluctuations of Manhattan. Mm-hmm. So it is, I'm not going to say that, Hoboken especially is just very, everyone, almost nearly 90% of the people that live in Hoboken work in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And they come to Hoboken for several reasons. And
Hoboken is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean it's only gotten better actually, mm-hmm. and there's a lot of things going on in Hoboken as far as just the infrastructure is concerned. Yep. They have a rebuild by design project that they're basically creating parks. The waterfront walkway is very beautiful. They're connecting it all. And in New Jersey, if you develop part of the waterfront, you have to actually incorporate the waterfront walkway for the public. Mm-hmm. It's actually by law, and so Hoboken is in the process of making the last piece of the waterfront walkway part of the community. And it's just a very beautiful way to live, be able to run up and down with Manhattan, as your skyline view, and you can still do everything and walk to places that you want to either eat or dine, or you have all the conveniences that you would have in Brooklyn, and yet you have a better value. And I think that's very attractive to people. So people have always been coming to Manhattan. I think they're coming more from Manhattan, I should say, and they're coming more as the years progress and as Hoboken and the inventory becomes more sophisticated. I think people from Manhattan are making it a viable choice as opposed to Brooklyn.
And I don't think there's just one profile. I mean, for someone that's moving from Manhattan to New Jersey or vice versa, I have, older people that are moving to the suburbs because they want to be closer to their kids. I have people from New Jersey that are moving to New York because their kids have left. So there's not just one particular group of people. It's
Right.
like a hodgepodge. So it's always constantly, changing, and you're trying to fit this person to this place and this person to that place.
Absolutely.
So I think it's there's no one set criteria. So
No, there isn't. All right. So looking ahead 5 years, okay, based on everything we talked about, do you think the relationship between New York or Manhattan and New Jersey will become more competitive or more complementary? Given everything we've talked about, trends, pricing, taxes, whatever, reasons why people go either way, do you think that we become more competitive with each other, or do we become more complementary? I have noticed through all the years I'm a New Yorker, and most especially in real estate, I think we've become complementary.
yeah, I think we're going to stay that way.
Does that
too.
continue?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think the benefits that both offer and that we can bounce off each other too. We're not giving up one for the other most of the time.
Right.
And so I say it remains complementary, definitely.
I also-
definitely. I agree. Go ahead.
Now, I think that what I find interesting is that a lot of towns like Montclair and Hoboken as well have become the level of dining experience has been elevated so that people are actually staying. So I wouldn't call that competitive. I know it's complementary because it's something that the consumer is actually looking for. They're looking for, I know personally when I first moved to Hoboken after living in Manhattan, my biggest pet peeve was the food. I was like, there's nowhere to eat in New Jersey that's comparable to Manhattan. And that's actually improved dramatically. And so I think that, one of the things that I feel that when people come to Hoboken, they don't ever really just say, "Oh, I hate it here." I can't believe I moved here. Everyone says, "Wow, this is kind of like a really nice place to live." Compliments, like you said, to New York City, and yet there's still a lot going on, and it's always improving. So I think that's really a nice thing.
It's interesting you talk about food because that used to be the same way in Manhattan. You go to certain neighborhoods for different foods, better food here, not so great here, and people made decisions on where to live. I mean, I grew up going to the Jersey Shore all the time, still love it, but we ate hot dogs and hamburgers. So whether it was good food or bad food, who cares? How bad can a hot dog or a hamburger be? We're at the shore, you're on the beach, toes in the sand or the water. It's like, really? It is what it is.
Asbury Park, by the way, is like booming.
Oh, my God. Talk about a change.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That is one of the most dynamic areas in New Jersey.
And I
right
remember, I'm old enough to remember how you really, didn't really want to get out of your car in Asbury Park for a long time, way back.
now it's all full of cranes. Everyone's building there.
Unbelievable.
Luxury hotels and amenities. Yeah.
I've actually had sellers where I sold their apartments here in Manhattan, and they've moved to Asbury Park.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Beach living, and you're
Yeah,
still
and
very
still
accessible.
close. Still can hop on a train and get to Manhattan.
One last plug for New Jersey.
Oh, it's a great place to live. It's a great place to experience life. There's culture. There's the ocean. There's the parks. There's theater. Everything that you want in your life, you can find in New Jersey.
I agree.
Farm stands, restaurants, you name it.
Oh, farm stands. Live for those. One last plug.
There's a great culture in New Jersey as far as like in Hoboken, you can get, fantastic mozzarella, and you can get, awesome, things that you can't, that are really, we have great bagels. And it's a very I've embraced my Jersey
all about
side.
mozzarella.
Because I actually grew up in Chicago, and I lived in New York, and I've lived in LA, and I have to say I've really come to embrace the Jerseyness of it all. And it's really a nice
I'm proud
nice
to be a
place
Jersey girl. So,
Yeah.
Well said, and no reason why you shouldn't be, both of you. Thank you so much. We're coming right back after these messages with my final thoughts. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back with my final thoughts. So as we wrap up today's conversation, one thing becomes clear. This isn't simply a discussion about geography. It's a discussion about priorities. For some, Manhattan will always represent the energy, convenience, culture, and excitement that made New York unlike any place in the world. ever. But for others, New Jersey offers the space, flexibility, community, and value that better align with where they are in their life today. The good news is that there is no wrong answer. The right choice isn't determined by a zip code, a state line, or even a price point. It's determined by how and where you want to live. Whether you ask yourself, should I stay or should I go? The most important thing is understanding what matters most to you, your lifestyle, your finances, your family, your commute, and your long-term goals. Because real estate is ultimately about creating a life, not just buying a home. And that's it for this episode of Talking New York Real Estate. I ask everyone to take a moment to really look hard inward and ask themselves, who are you at your core? What is your why, the reason you get up in the morning, and the driving force behind your choices that you make? What beliefs guide you and where they come from, and are they from your family, your experiences, your struggles, your triumphs? Understand these pieces of yourself shapes who you are and how you move through the world. And once you know them, the challenge is to show up intentionally and to be memorable every single day, not through perfection or performance, but by living with authenticity, purpose, clarity, and the courage to let people see and feel the real you. Remember, your reputation arrives before you do. You can follow me on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, or TikTok at Vince Rocco. And Elton John and Bernie Taupin say, always remember how wonderful life is while you are in this world. And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network to all of you all around the world, thanks for spending a part of your day with us. I am grateful. Keep thinking the good thoughts, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.